iMAXX podcast.
Look at this plant, dude.
So
It's a nice
I don't think I've
touch.
watered that plant in probably like 2 months.
Dude, she's doing good.
But we went through like 3 or 4 plants so far on the podcast, and that one's lasted the longest. So I think we found.
Might want to try a bit more water.
just a little. For a landscaper, I do forget to put water on my plants. All right, so we're gonna get started here on the iMAXX podcast for episode number 10, and today's guest is Spencer Beals.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, man.
Oh, yeah. So to get started, if you want to kind of give a brief introduction to who you are, what you do, and then we'll just hop right in.
Yeah, that sounds good. My name's Spencer Beals. I'm a full-time artist in Asheville. I've got a art studio in the River Arts District. I've been here for about a bit over 3 years, and I've just been building a lot of creative communities. So I've been hosting a sketchbook club that meets twice a month for over 2 years. I host a nature journaling club, and recently we've been doing this poetry and paint event over at my new studio at Pink Dog Creative with some other folks.
Where did you move from?
I was in Baltimore for 5 years before that, and then I live in my van full time, so I bop around vending at different art shows and just have the freedom to sort of move to sell art more easily.
So you got 3 things you mainly focus on. Can you tell me those one more time?
Yeah, I've got my own personal art practice that I definitely put more time into than these 3 things. But these are sort of ongoing community events that I've been helping facilitate. So Sketchbook Club, which it's every first and third Monday of the month. And that's great if you're just trying to keep a consistent art practice. I bring a lot of featured artists in. We do a lot of collaborations. It's hosted at 12 Baskets in West Asheville. So there's nice circular tables. It's a nice way to just meet some creative friends, and it's all skill levels and ages are welcome. So we got like 6-year-old kids. And, and then I do nature journaling. So we got 3 upcoming events. If you're ever trying to just get into the woods, I typically go out with somebody who's like a plant genius. So my buddy Luke's been doing it. He teaches Astounding Earth. So he's like a mushroom genius, a tree genius. So we just go out there, geek out on a bunch of plants, and then bring our sketchbooks, draw some mushroom networks, and it's a good time.
Is that what you were doing at UNCA? I saw that y'all were trying to help save some of the native land there.
Totally. Yeah, that was like nature journaling as protest, because UNCA was set to cut 120 acres on their property. So we got my friend Laura Bogg. She's got a PhD in lichen. Did you know such a thing was possible?
No.
Yeah, she's killer, dude. Didn't you know that? PhD in lichen. I think about that often. But anyways, yeah, we got 120 people into the woods, just nature journaling, checking out those trails. Because, I mean, if you're in Asheville, you're surrounded by woods, but also having a place that's like, 10, 15 minutes instead of like a half hour is sweet. So I use those trails a lot. Right by the Arboretum. I don't know if you've been over there.
Oh, yeah. I know it's easy. Like, we work all around Asheville, and it's easy to just get lost in the city or on the roads and not really get disconnected out into the woods. And I think that's really important, especially where we live. You got so many options to go kind of get lost in the woods for a little while.
Totally.
But I do find myself just getting trapped in the hustle and bustle of the everyday life, and I need to make sure I'm putting a little bit more of that into my life.
You come out camping, man.
I used to live in Fletcher on Hutch Mountain, and my house was out in the middle of the woods, and so it was always nice. I could just go hiking really just right at my house.
Hell yeah.
Now we're in a neighborhood, so I miss my connection to nature.
I mean, for my creative practice, I feel like I just go out into the woods, geek out on some stuff, and then come back into the studio, and I'm like, in terms of inspiration for my creative practice, nature journaling is way up there.
And when can people join you for that?
You could just check. I got a on my Instagram, I have a broadcast channel that says like AVL Art Community, and if you join that, then I'll release upcoming dates.
Oh, okay, cool.
Sketchbook Club, it's every first and third Monday of the month, and then nature journaling, when we do it, fluctuates, so that's the place to see what's upcoming.
Cool. So and then you had a third one, right?
Oh yeah, we've been doing poetry and paint with Destro and Bess. So they've been hosting this long before I got into the picture, but we've been doing that at my art studio at Pink Dog Creative. And it tends to be, well, I don't need to say that, but if you just follow my Instagram, you'll see that coming up. And that incorporates like an open mic, and they have like a theme for everyone. So people respond to a theme, and then Bess will pick out from like this jar and then just sort of riff off what people write down. And then Destro's doing a live painting that's sort of responding to some of the poetry that he's coming up with, which is a really cool thing just to watch happen. And they're both great artists. And then it transitions into an open mic. Then there's like a featured poet. So if you're trying to read some poetry or, share a story behind an art piece you're working on. Yeah, I mean, all of these different events and different capacities are just building creative community and giving people a chance to just build stronger creative networks.
So what brought you to the mountains of North Carolina from Baltimore?
Yeah, it was ultimately a bit of a fluke. I'd gone to art school in Baltimore, and then, after graduation, I graduated art school, and there's not exactly a classic trajectory after that. So me and my buddy Christian we just started a painting company up there for a bit. So we were just doing house painting, and we had a moving company because I was like, damn, the van, I can put like a 1-bedroom into the van, no problem. So we were just doing moving and painting gigs, making money after that. And then I was moving down to Georgia. I was ultimately coming down to do wilderness therapy. So I was going to be a facilitator of wilderness therapy in northern Georgia. And then on the way down to my like week-long training, I drove through Asheville for the first time. I saw what would become my first art studio in the River Arts District. So I did my week-long training. I like jumped through all these hurdles to get the job. And then the last day I was like, nah, I ain't gonna do it. And I had $5,000 saved up. So I told myself, all right, just try and get a studio. And if you get down to $1,000, you can just retrain and take this job. So I was like, I got a $4,000 buffer. And then I just started drawing pet portraits that got enough commissions rolling that I was able to just transition to art full time.
Yeah, I know, especially if you're a kid and you got the artistic mind and you want to be an artist, you go to school and it's like they almost make that seem impossible. Instead of saying, well, here's routes that other people use to live that creative life. And so I think, especially as a younger person, it's important to like use your creativity to find, if you're wanting to live a life of being an artist, you got to find your lane and try to find your path, because there's not a concrete path and they're not going to teach you that in school.
Totally.
I'm not even sure. I didn't go to art school, but I'm not sure if they even kind of taught paths of success.
Yeah, I find that most of what was discussed, and mostly when I'm talking about artistry in this conversation, I'll be talking about visual art, but there's so many connection points that we could dive into.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, they at like school they talk mostly about how to get gallery representation. And if you're showcasing a series of paintings at a classic gallery, you're splitting that 50-50. So you sell a piece for $2,000, you're taking home $1,000, and it's hard. I've put my work in so many galleries and the work doesn't even sell. And as I've progressed through it, I've become acutely aware of the fact that if you break down like, oh, these are people who are full-time artists, so many more of those people are doing pop-up art events and in some capacity representing themselves. Like this idea of the artist who's like in isolation somewhere, making a bunch of paintings and then giving them to a gallery, the gallery's displaying them and selling them and giving them 50%. I don't know anybody who's a full-time artist like that.
Yeah.
But I know a ton of people who are just getting a 10 by 10 pop-up booth, vending their artwork, interfacing with people directly. Maybe they have a public-facing art studio and are just building tons of connections and being able to pursue art full-time that way. And I think through our lifetime, we're watching sort of the lessening of the gallery model and the rising in large part due to being able to have your own audience through social media, being able to just have people interface directly with a visual artist and have less of a gallery as like a middle ground between that.
Oh yeah. I know, like, just in my own story, I like to make music, and that's how we met. But I didn't really see any path to make that success, but I knew I wanted to build an artistic life and be able to make music whenever I wanted to. And again, like, I like to mess with my hands and I like to shape the ground. And when I started thinking of my job as a piece of artwork, I realized what we want to sell, and we want to sell that beauty. We want to shape the rocks the right way. We want to take your breath away whenever you look at our landscaping. When I was just looking at it as just a business or my career, I didn't really have that love for it. But when I started realizing that it is an artistic process, and then I can think creatively to sell this product, and then we're paying attention to all those little details, I kind of made my path in life is I'm going to try to build a successful landscape company so that I can pursue my other artistic visions, which is music. So far, and now it's the podcast. So far, I've been able to make, like, I've got my source of income coming from here right now, so that I can build and invest into the other avenues I want to play around with. And I just feel like a lot of people have that dream, but they don't realize you have to think differently than everybody else on how am I going to make this actually work. Because I might not ever sell 100 million records, but I can put out the art I want to when I want to, and I'm trying to just build my career and my job around that. And so any decision I make, I try to keep that in mind of where I'm wanting to go with it.
Yeah, totally. So, and the more just different artists collaborate, the better. Because anytime you've got visual arts, music, food, you got yourself a good day.
Yeah. So we met, I guess, a couple times. You work a lot with Joe Robb, or y'all started collaborating, and then Joe Robb was putting on some music shows we were doing. How did that connection happen? And
yeah, I came across some like short documentary he was in, and then I saw he put an art show up in the basement of Trinity United Methodist Church, and then I, after going to his art show, invited him to be the featured artist at a sketchbook club so he could share some of his artwork and whatnot. And then he told me about what he was doing with Create Fest, which at the time was over at Trinity United Methodist Church. And we're both community organizers, both have networks into other artists, and just enjoy bringing people together to celebrate art. So it's been a pretty easy collaboration just because we were both independently pretty much doing the same thing.
How important do you think it is to have an open mind to want to work with other artists? Because I know sometimes it gets competitive, and like you were talking a minute ago about like the isolated artist creating all these works of art and then putting them out. Like, for the person that's trying to live that isolated life, like, how important is it to collaborate with other artists, even in a different industry of art?
Yeah, I mean, it feeds me in part because of, just by personality, I'm extroverted. So I think doing those things is easier. And I think without a doubt, when it comes to being an artist and selling art, extroversion is like more or less a superpower.
Oh, yeah.
Because the network just is a part of that. And even if you're, because I'd say the average visual artist, at least, is far more introverted. But even if that's the case, like, man, like just going to certain show openings and showing up to events that are going and talking to a handful of people, like, even if that's not what you would do by tendency, like recognizing like, oh, this is part of like my career, is just like attending these events and being friendly with people. And even if in the beginning it's a little bit uncomfortable, then you'll see the same person at the next show, and you'll have something to talk about. So even if you're, I think it's a necessity, realistically. I think it's definitely a necessity. I think so much of relationship building is just going to lead to good outcomes. And a lot of the things are like invisible. Like if you're putting on shows, oftentimes I put a ton of time into sort of community organization, and it isn't the most profitable branch of the things that I spend my time doing, but it's so positively productive. So I enjoy doing it. I love doing it. I think it provides a lot of value. And then a lot of those people will, maybe their parents come to town or something, and then they're walking through the River Arts District and they're like, oh, I know this artist. I came to a sketchbook club. Like, let's circle through, his space. And then they pick up something then. So it's like, when you begin to like interface in these wheels of like community building through a creative practice, you allow for all this sort of like invisible reciprocity to just circle back around. And that could look like, oh, I met so-and-so at a show, and now I'm putting an event together, and he comes to mind because I remember seeing him or her at this event. So I think it's just a really beautiful, healthy, natural part of a creative scene is just building relationships as much as possible and just allowing those to be fruitful.
Yeah. So I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum, introverted. And one thing, and I know I've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, but one thing I've been doing is every year I'm trying to do something that gets me completely out of my comfort zone. So last year, 2022, it was, I'm going to start putting my music back out, and just no matter what, even if it's just some freestyles, I just want to get some of my art out. Even if it gets like 10 plays, don't really care. I just want to get it out. And then last year it was I never had performed live ever. So last year I started performing with V-Flow and Pasado Click. And then this year it's doing the podcast and just trying to meet somebody. Maybe it's the first time we really had a long conversation like us today, and then just get comfortable with doing that. And like getting around other artists and getting around that community, it also inspires me. Like, oh, you're doing it this way. Cool. What can I learn from you? What can I try to give you to help you maybe cross a bridge in your own life? And I just love getting around that community. Even in business, this past week I was at the Vault conference in Orlando, Florida, and just I was in the room with like people that are doing multiple $100 million companies, and like they're talking to you like, hey, we're all on the same journey. We're all trying to aim the same direction in business, and just getting around those people and hearing all the different speakers talk in good depth on all that really was inspiring to like, hey, I can do this. And if you're around other people that are doing it, you realize that they're human too, and that if it's possible for anybody, it can still be possible for you. And then, I've heard you want to be the least smart person in the room that you're in. That way you can always learn off of somebody else. And I don't know, I think it's really important to get yourself in those communities of artists or business or whatever you're searching for in life. Get around like-minded people, because you are like the top 5 people around you. That's how you're going to think. So if you have people doubting you or telling you that's impossible to make money doing art, or impossible to do that in business, you're going to start hearing their voice come through your head, and I mean, it's going to hinder you. So
100%.
And just enjoying the struggle with someone else, like, man, this is stressful. Like with music, like if you have some people to bounce your stuff off of after a show, especially when it's been a bad show, it's always nice to have those like-minded people that are in the fight and journey with you.
I mean, the River Arts District is the perfect place to work. Like, I feel like it's one of the strongest art scenes in the country right now. I feel like if you want to, pursue art full time, like it's a real privilege to be around so many artists who are making good money doing it, have been full time for 20, 30 years, have a career under their belt. And I mean, realistically, a lot of the River Arts District, it tends to be older folks. So we're looking to like even recruit like high quality young artists who want to do it full time. Like the River Arts District's one of the best scenes in the country right now.
So being from the River Arts District, I know last year, about this same time last year, the hurricane came through, and I went there a little after the hurricane, and just the community and how everybody was coming together. How was that like, living there, being there during the hurricane and that experience?
Yeah, that was a trip. Yeah.
Were you actually staying there while it was going like
Yeah.
while it came through?
Yeah, so I would, I've lived in my van for 4 years. So when I had a art studio, I treated that pretty much like my home. Because I mean, if it's hot or cold, I think the van's wretchedly cold or wretchedly hot. So being in the studio is the comfortablest place to be. So anyways, I'd spent, before the storm, like that was my home in a deep way. And so leading up to the storm, there was like wild prediction, I guess, just about the severity of it. So we were over. Had you been to Foundation Studios over by the Marquee?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so yeah, over by the skate park, by the Marquee. So, anyways, it was like leading up to that, and we got, there were some people who were like, it's gonna flood to the roof, like straight wine bottle in hand, weeping before it, and then Reed, who owned Foundation Studios, didn't believe the water was going to come up to the floor. And, that just was the situation where there was like rapidly different predictions about how bad could be. So anyways, I had my van where I thought it was safe next to just essentially there was a small hill in the parking lot that was like 8 feet up. And since they were predicting maybe 3 feet of water, I had it there. And then last second, I was like, you know what? Let me just really move my van. And thank God I did, because I drove it up to Earth Fair, which is that parking lot at the top of the hill.
Yep.
And then I knew I personally wasn't prepared. So I skateboarded down. I left my van up there, and I skateboarded back down into the studio. And this is sort of the night before the storm. And then I just slept in the studio because I was getting all my artwork and lifting it up above the bar, which was like 10 feet off the ground. And having had conversations with people who at least hypothetically believed it could flood to the roof or at least flood 5 feet up, I was like, man, the difference between, having everything in this studio 3 feet off the ground versus 1 foot off the ground, because a lot of people have print racks where it's like thousands of dollars, essentially 6 inches off the ground. So I slept there, and I didn't really even sleep at all. I was just spent all night sort of setting up tables, on the phone with Reed, who was the building owner, because eventually he had to just like evacuate, because at that point at the night you could not cut in and out. I to my knowledge, I was the only person there. Like nobody was evacuating their art, and I was just like lifting, because I mean there was, I don't know, 20 individual studios and then over 100 artists in the space, and I was like, damn dude, we are so ill prepared. So then I was like putting tarps up in front. I mean, it was crazy. And then I was spraying great stuff around the edges of the door, like trying to create like a better layer, and just like so then just trying to lift all the art up. I'm like watching the water creek up. It's like 4 a.m. I'm like out in the parking lot in like knee deep water. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be sort of significant. And then around and I've got a shop vac at that point. That's my plot. My plot is, all right, we might get a little bit of water in it. I'm going to shop vac it out, just pour it down the sink. We'll be good. Great stuff in the door shut. And so I'm in the building, and then around like 8 a.m., I would say, it started to get wretched. So like all night, it was rising maybe 2 inches an hour. And then right around 7 or 8 a.m., it started to rise like 1.5 feet in an hour. So I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like shop vacuuming at first. And then at some point I'm like, okay, the water's just like bubbling up everywhere in between the like foundation and the walls. So the fact that I've tried to like make the actual doors waterproof doesn't matter at all, because it's essentially coming under and then up. And at this point there's like 5 inches of water over everything. I've given up on the shop vac. And then I'm like, oh, fuck. Because I was like, man, this could happen. And then there's the moment where you're like, oh, this is actually going to happen. This is my livelihood. This is all my sketchbooks from high school. This is, my entire creative. So then I'm like frantically throwing stuff up and just trying to lift stuff up. And like my laptop's in there, all my vending supplies. And at this point, there's like 1 foot of water. The lights have gone off. So I'm like walking around with my phone light. And then I'm like, all right, I actually am not trying to die in this building. Like I'm like frantically trying to save materials. But then I'm like, all right, we need to get the fuck out of here. And I've essentially, Can I curse?
Oh yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. That's a free
Sure.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I actually might have fucked myself terribly because I've great stuff. The door's shut. So then I'm trying to, but there's multiple exits that I've like loosely considered. So I'm like walking through the building. I'm like, I cannot believe this. I'm like, there's like a foot of water in there, and I get to this door that I'm gonna shove out, and I go to shove it, but the water pressure on the outside is so much that I can't budge the door. So then I freak out. I'm like, okay, dying. I knew I was being kind of dumb, but like I was thinking, okay, we'll leave the building. But when you can't push a door open because there's 2.5 feet of water on the other side, it was like some frantic rhinoceros shit. So then I back up and I like slam my shoulder into the door, and then I barely push it out, and essentially creates like a water vortex as all that water's trying to push in. And I sort of get hella lucky because in that vortex, like a rock comes in and like stops itself on the door, and I'm like, dude, it's now or never. So there's like 4 inches of door with like intense pressure from the outside, and I like squeeze myself out and then I'm like, oh my god. And so I have to like half swim, half wade through like chest deep water onto the railroad tracks to get out of the studio. Like that was a wicked nightmare. So yeah.
So what was like your next steps after that? Like, did you make it back to your van, like right after that?
Yeah, my girlfriend Meryl Jane, you know her. She's
Yep.
a singer-songwriter as well. She's performed with V-Flow and Meryl Jane. Hell yeah. But she was coming down with a damn kayak. She was calling me. She was like, leave. Like she'd been telling me to leave. So it was a nightmare. So I mostly just reconnected with her because this was before all the phone went out for like a fat minute. And we ended up, man, it was pretty devastating because when I left there, there was a foot
And
of
you
water.
left, and there was a foot inside.
Inside, and about so the door was a couple of steps up. So the door was like 2.5 feet, but then once you went down to the actual like ground, it was chest deep, half wading. There's like trees and trash cans. I'm like pushing them aside to get onto the railroad tracks. And we later end up sort of in West Asheville at the top of the hill that there's like a bunch of houses up on stilts on there, and you can overlook the River Arch District. And that was wretched because I'd left and I was convinced that my art would be fine, right? Because it wasn't up on a table. The majority of it was, 10 feet up. And I remember going to that hillside and looking down and being like, dude, the studio's flooded to the roof. Like all my shit's rocked. And I just started like sobbing. And most of the people who were up on that hill, it was like the owner of, like there were so many restaurants down there, and like, I'd spent the last years, that was pretty much my home. So all those building owners and just people who had run businesses there for a long time were just up on the hill, just like in disbelief. And, there were artists, I'm young, I'm 26, but there's artists who, they had an art career for 70 years and all of that shit was flooded. So like being up on that, just like processing the grief of like, wow, that's like your entire creative career is flooded. And ultimately I was like grateful to be alive. But that, it was sad. It was really sad. The entire marquee was flooded. I was watching like, yeah, dark days post-lean. And then what happened was I watched the like wall collapse into Foundation Studios, and then I started being like, dude, I want to get my art. I need to get my art because I was kind of tweaking because I was like, what the fuck? Because leading up to this, I'd spent like 150 hours on this wolf piece I was working on, and I was so damn pissed that it was flooded. So I watched this wall collapse, and I have a 2-person inflatable kayak. So right off the riff, I was like, man, if that water goes down like another foot, that's kayakable. But at this point, there's still tons of people up on that hilltop, and there's like swift water rescues. Like I watched this person who was stuck in their car right by Earth Fair. Like it was, there were nightmares everywhere, and there were people stuck on their house roofs, of course. And I did not want to set a kayak and have swift water rescue have to save my ass trying to go after my art. So I convinced my buddy at night. I was like, dude, I need to get in there. I need my pieces. Like I was so emotionally connected to them, and I just was like so emotional and wanted, like I was just like, I want the art so damn bad. And the moment it was possible, I was like, let's do it. So I hit up my buddy Mitch. I'm like, Mitch, you want to go SEAL Team 6? We kayak, get some of this art out. He's like, dude, you're insane. And then my buddy Ryan, I was able to convince. So it was like midnight. We like crept. At this point, the water had gone down some, so like it had flooded up to the roof, and then there was like 8 feet of water. So at night, we go in, we walk down the we're able to like drive our van loosely to the railroad tracks. I've got like my 2-person backpack on my back, and we go in there like with headlamps type shit, and so we set sail. You don't know the area as well, but there was an indoor skate park, which is now going to be a climbing gym on the other side of Foundation Studios, and we start inflating the kayak, and we've got like, so anyways, we set sail, and we're on the water, and it becomes abundantly clear that once we hit the main channel that we're going to have to go down in order to get into the building, the current is significant. Because at this point, and mind you, the river is like 200 feet outside of its classic containment bank. So the river is like wide as all hell, and it's still moving like mad. So anyways, I'm like, okay, once we get out into that current, pretty immediately, we're going to both have to start digging hard, because we're going to be pushed so hard, and there's like a 8-foot gap that we're trying to get ourselves into. And the part that makes it incredibly sketchy is the reason why that wall has collapsed is because a massive natural gas container has fallen up from God knows where upriver and careened into the building. So if we don't hit this gap, our kayak is going to be like squanched underneath a nightmare propane explosion tank. So I'm like, all right, when we go, we're just gonna go. So we go in, and immediately I'm like, this current is like 5x what I was anticipating. So we start jetting in, and right before we get careened, we're able to like break through into Foundation through this gap. And I'm like, oh my God. And it smells like so potently of natural gas. Like the room is filled. I'm like, bro, we're gonna die of fumes. I'm like, do not light up, like we will explode type 5. And everything's floating, so it's like a trip, because we're inside the studio, but there's like, I don't know, maybe 8 feet of, between 6 to 8 feet of water. There's debris everywhere. And so we kayak up to the bar. I mean, you've performed here, V-Flow. You know exactly where I am. So we're kayaking up, and like essentially I like get up standing on the top of this lightly deflating kayak and like climb up and start, and I know right where my art is, so it's totally flooded, but I'm like passing him original work, pass it. So I was able to get like the wolf piece I was mostly focused on, and then like 6 or 7 other original pieces, and then we just start grabbing wine bottles, because I mean, we're there. So we got like 20 wine bottles into the kayak, and then we're just like, dude, we got to get out of here before we explode.
Damn.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And I saw on your Instagram too that like you did a video. I guess the water had went down significantly by this time. And you were like kind of cleaning off some of your mud piece. And I actually bought one from you at Create Fest, the one that was at Patton Park.
Hell there. Yeah, man.
But I thought it was so dope that it was an original piece. And that was kind of like the first time that Asheville was opening back up a little bit, was at that event that we did. When was that? Was that October? And we had the bus. And I'm pretty sure Surreal Circus.
Yeah. That's coming around in like a week or 2 now.
Okay, cool.
Uh-huh.
But that's when I think I first met you, and I thought that was the coolest piece of art. I had it's the girl that's kind of looking down, and you got the scenes all around her.
Totally. Thank you, man. Actually, I appreciate that.
I meant to bring it today, but it's in my actual music studio at my house. It's right above where I have my mic and everything. So
damn, thank you, man.
So
I
yeah,
appreciate
I thought
that.
it was, and you signed it. But I guess you made a video of you finding those pieces and cleaning them out. How many were you able to retrieve from that? And how much did you, I don't want to get too many bad memories, but how much did you lose compared to how much were you able to save?
Totally. Yeah, well, I mean, so everything flooded. So even what I was able to recover, like sketchbooks, all my vending supplies, everything flooded completely. I didn't have really hardly any art at all that wasn't in that building. But you know, and I mean, you can put it all together and be like, man, that might be like $25,000 plus just of artwork, art supplies, laptop, these pro panels that I use to set up my 10x10 vending tent, my whole setup. And so anyways, yeah, those videos. So there was like multiple times where I went back in. The kayak was the first one. Then the water truly went down. So then I went back into the space. I was recovering some of my canvases because I only went to where I put like my main stuff that first time. But then there was still tons of artwork in my art studio. So once the water went down, we were wiping it off with mud. And what's crazy is so those videos went insanely viral because, I mean, a lot of people's attention was on the area because I mean it was a devastating event. So I mean almost 2 million people saw that video, and then another one got over 1 million views just because I was just documenting the scene like right after, and a lot of people are still like trapped in their homes. So I think it was the first time a lot of people saw like what the River Arts District looked like post Helene. And what's crazy is so I was like pulling them out of the mud, washing them off, and I was trying to sell the work. And I was like, even in that video, I was like, I'm trying to sell you the work tape. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm an artist. It was like, this one's 400, this one's 400. So I was like, in terms of shit to go viral, that was, I mean, realistically, it's crazy to say, but I'm incredibly grateful for it. But that video went viral. So many people reached out to buy art. And in the 3 days after Helene, I made $40,000. And I shipped out like 85 canvases all over the United States. And these are 24 by 30, you know, really beautiful, awesome pieces that are hanging up all over the country. Like, I was incredibly grateful because a lot of people connected with the work. They saw like what had just happened. They were eager to help. And it was insane because you can imagine sort of just the emotional turmoil of all that, and then to have essentially a lucky flick in an algorithm, and then the ability to immediately be able to gain, because I mean, you lose, I might have even been more. Like, it's like, and you can't prove it. This is an important point. Like, if you have a painting and you spend 200 hours on it, like, as far as like any insurance is concerned, it's like, well, show me the receipt for the framing, and you use colored pencils. How many were your colored pencils? But there's nowhere in there where you're like valuing 250 hours of your time. And even if you have a record of selling pieces for $5,000, they're like, it's sort of like, they'll never insure it for what you would actually sell it for. They're insure the frame or whatever. I mean, it didn't matter anyways. No insurance ever came through. What came through was a ton of people who bought art, you included, and a bunch of community members, and the response was phenomenal. And that was like both swelling in Asheville and all over because people love the art scene. They were, I mean, so many people have prayed for me and just prayed for the arts district. And I mean, it is emotional for real, just to see like the level of like love that evoked in people. Yeah. And I mean, that changed everything because I didn't have a studio. And then, you know, I signed a studio maybe 3 days after that for a year, in part because it's like, damn, I'm like, I have a bunch of sales under my belt. The most important thing I can get is another studio. So I was able to immediately get back to it in large part due to that.
So what got you thinking so quick on your feet to like, I need to document this? That kind of led to that lucky break there. Like, what do you feel led you to, like, did it just, like, because I know a lot in art, we talk about the antenna, and I'm just trying to correlate some of that with some of the decisions you make that might give you, we just had Freed Glitch on. I don't know if you've seen his music, but he was on the Coulda Been House with Drewski. And we were talking to him like he got a crazy lucky break because of videos he posted on Instagram. Like, he didn't even go to the tryouts or anything. Drewski found his video on Instagram, and he said he felt like the antenna was kind of just telling him to put this stuff out and keep being consistent with it. And then boom, you got your lucky break.
Right.
Like, do you feel like that same antenna that kind of leads you to do your art? If you feel that way, do you think that was still kind of leading you like, hey, these are some good shots. I want to document this whole experience? Because you had no idea it was going to go viral, I'm sure. Had you previously had anything go viral, or was that?
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of, I've never loved social media. I view social media as the chore that is required to be a full-time artist.
Yep.
And I would not want to wake up at 6 a.m. and start painting somebody's house. But, you know, I'm going to make social media videos because I want to pursue my dreams.
Yep.
So prior to the flood, I'd been pretty consistent on, you know, posting on Instagram and whatever. And I'd had a few things go, I had a few things go viral before, but I was just so in the process of just acceptance of the fact that if you're doing a creative pursuit, it just makes sense to document it because it allows people to sort of come along for the journey. And I mean, at this point, people didn't know if I was alive. So I was just like, it would be pretty useful to be, because I mean, nobody knew what had happened. I mean, people lost houses and landslides, horrible things.
And it was probably like
around.
2 weeks before you had any kind of outside contact available in Nashville.
Right. I mean, I was able to figure stuff out before 2 weeks, but like in any clean, overarching way, it was pretty difficult to get like any sort of calls out. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it was really anything I did particularly. If anybody could see what I saw just like down there, it's like, holy damn shit. And especially if you'd been to what I was filming pre-flood, just seeing the marquee with its walls smashed. And I mean, shout out the marquee because later this month they're about to reopen. I've got a wall space there. Cool. So stuff's already popping back, and a ton has happened in a year. And the River Arts District's unbelievably resilient. There's new studios popping up every day. But I don't think I did anything special in those videos. I just kept doing what I'd been doing, and just the circumstances just sort of,
Cool. So how did like pre-Spencer before the hurricane compared to post-Spencer after the hurricane, how did that affect your art in the way that now you create it, or did it have like an impact on that?
Yeah. Right after, I really tried to not. My life was so overwhelmingly Helene focused that art, I didn't want to like draw the flood, for example, like, and I didn't really directly allow too much influence from the storm because, you know, like my creative practice is my ability for sanity. You know what I mean? And like, if every day you're just like hosing off muddy artwork, when I got to draw, I was like far from it. And of course, like there's no way for it not to seep into it. And I think at this point, like a year out, I'm more open to like going there with it. But I was pretty intentionally having my art practice not mirror that out of just necessity for having parts of it that were, and I was working on 2 books pre-flood, so I had like a big amount of inertia for creative projects already set in motion. So like just continuing that was like really healthy. And then more recently I like rematted some of the original work that was flooded out, which led me to sort of do more imagery that was directly inspired by some of those experiences. And I was able to sell most of those and have a handful still available. But yeah, I mean, anytime you're an artist, your entire life is art, and everything that's happening is like unconsciously being soaked into it.
I know whenever, I guess I was always kind of an artist growing up. I didn't realize I was an artist, but as soon as, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, I realized like you don't have to be especially talented at one thing. Like it's a lifestyle, it's a mindset. And when I accepted that, I like what you're saying, like everything you kind of come in contact with, you can kind of start putting in your art. Like with music, like I can use these different lyrics, and then you kind of tune into the frequency that it's coming into you at, and like you realize it's all around you, and you don't even realize it though sometimes until you're like in the middle of a project, and then you start to see it all come together, and it's like, wow, I didn't even know that was going on. So that's cool. So like how, like, and this I'll try to get off the hurricane, but I know like the community really came together in that time. How important do you think that was, instead of people starting to divide after that, like just the camaraderie that was going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a known fact that after, you know, horrible things happen, people tend to come together. And I mean, it's mostly just necessity, I think. I mean, it's a resting state of the world of like people by like it feels good to help people, and especially when people actually sincerely need help. Like a lot of people came into the studio and were helping me just get artwork from me and from so many hundreds of artists, and coming down into the rad with like boots and gloves, and people, you know, cooking up burgers and shit for people who were helping out. And there was like infinity examples of that, of just like checking in on neighbors and bringing water and doing the things that in an intact community would be, you know, just classic parts of life. But as we've fractured more deep community relationships, it strikes us more as like intense. But I think like the heart of that has stayed intact. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. I think Asheville in general, there's like when I was in, well, I don't know, let me put it right. Like there's a lot of people I run into who do community involvement and just talk on that concept. Joe Rob, many people who just believe that, you know, like creative community is part of what we're building here. Where in other cities, like there just weren't people who would say like, oh, I'm involved in building creative community. Like that as a phrase just wasn't so commonly used. So there's like both the language of it and the fact that, you know, Asheville doesn't have too many like large industries. There's no large section of tech bros. There's not a, like the largest buildings are hotels. They're not like banks, or there's no, you know what I mean? Obviously there's a bit of everything, but there's a lot of entrepreneurial people.
Yep.
And if, you know, maybe you work from home, but like you're working downtown, service industry style jobs. So you do run into a lot of people whose livelihood, it like is their passion. You know, they're a business owner in some capacity, in part out of necessity due to how the market, like the job market in Asheville is. And it leads to a lot of people who are community oriented, because a huge part of owning a business is like being like, hey, my word matters. Like if I tell you I'm going to do something, it's dependable. And we have a lot of relationships because I've been doing this for a minute. I've worked with a lot of people. If you talk to the people who I've worked with, they will speak well of me because you treat people well. And that is like the baseline of just functioning well in the world. It's crucial for a creative career, and it's crucial for a business.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, just getting around and just knowing if you're trying to grow in business, or I think it's as an artist as well, like trying to get around and find out who is making the decisions, and trying to build that community and become part of that community. Because like in building, I know if we do a good job for this builder, they have project managers. They're probably project managers in construction is a very short term. Like you stay at one place for maybe a year, and then you bounce to another place, and then you bounce to another place. So if you develop relationships with these guys, they might go work here. Well, then boom, you're in with another guy, and then they might go work over here, and boom, you're just kind of. But you got to keep that relationship good, which is give and take on both sides. But I think that's one of the most important things, especially doing business, is building those key relationships and getting in the right circles of people that are going to help you get to where you want to get to. And I think a lot of people overlook that and try to bulldoze their way through, and then they don't find success because they're wanting to do it all on themselves, and they only care about themselves. They only care about the profit and not really the product they're selling.
Yeah, to build off that idea from a visual artist perspective, like if you're able to sit, like I'm able to sit in my art studio and there's a pretty decent flow of people coming in, and that's like an opportunity to build like meaningful collectors. Because as it pertains to selling like particularly original work for, you know, over $1,000, like most artists, you know, like you can have a full-time art career with like 15 people who like deeply, and my model's different because I sell a lot of prints at a lower price point. But if you're only doing original work, like, yeah, just that, like, that's why I think the River Arts District is so valuable, because it puts you in a great position to introduce a lot of people to your work and to sort of build up even a small nexus of people who really enjoy your work. And then if you keep those relationships intact, those can be super fruitful, because many people will come to the River Arts District maybe twice a year even. Maybe they live down in Florida and they like to cool off, and like realistically, if that's your life, you've got decent money. And then if you see something that you like, it isn't like $1,000 doesn't hit like how it might hit to me or you. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh man, this is beautiful. I love this. And you've got the ability to just enjoy something and treasure it, and it helps out people. So it's like this beautiful interaction.
And so with the success, there's a lot more responsibility that happens and a lot more tasks for you to deal with, I'm sure. I know as we've grown as a company, I used to love being out on the dirt and shaping the dirt and running a machine and then raking it, getting it perfect. And it was all part of the creative process of building a landscape or a hardscape. And that's what I loved about landscaping. That's why I got into landscaping, because I loved being part of that process. And then with the success of business and the growth and everything, I found myself now almost trapped behind computer screens all day. I still get to sell the product. I just don't really get to touch it a whole lot, because I'm just sales, estimates, and then trying to run the company and build systems and trying to build the right teams and all. And so now I'm like so far removed from the art that I actually loved. How, in the ways I'm dealing with that, is I'm trying to find the joy and excitement in creating a calculator on a spreadsheet, or trying to build the system. I'm trying to find the creativeness in that and enjoy that process while I'm building these. And it's something I definitely struggle with, because I love to create. And so sometimes the mundane, repetitive work that I have to do every week, like my brain doesn't function that way. So like I'm great at creating it, but then trying to keep up with it every week's my struggle. How do you deal with like that? I'm sure now you're meeting more people. You have to have more community time, so you're spending less time on the art that you like to create. Do you like section off time to make sure you're still hitting your creative points, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, one of the most beautiful things is, because like the way you're describing it is, you have like an income stream that you find like a lot of creative beauty in, and then you have a adjacent creative practice with your music. And like I'm sort of in the same web, where I have like a social media company that I run, and then I have like my artist practice. But more and more I'm able to just shed more time into my creative career, which is sweet. And then I would say I heavily prioritize studio time. So obviously you have to like apply for shows and correspond to emails and do in any career some level of like administrative things. But I'm able to spend 40 to 60 hours a week certainly in my studio, and the bulk of that is making art. And that's one huge thing. It's like, now that I'm able to generate more sales directly in my studio, I'm kind of living the artist utopia of like, man, I just sit here and draw, and then when somebody comes in, I'll talk to them. But I used to constantly be like setting up and breaking down art vending booths at different events, because I couldn't generate enough money directly from my studio. But particularly now, like tourism's bounced back well, and it'll get that way again in winter. But right now we're getting really good, steady traffic. So that's like the most ideal setup, is then in between people coming in, I'm working on new pieces. But yeah, definitely setting time for it. I've just decided from like 11 to 5-ish, like when we have peak traffic, I'm drawing. So if I have to do some sort of like administrative things, I just do it after 5, where somebody might come into the studio, but the traffic's a lot less.
Yeah. I think it's like, do you keep a calendar at all?
Oh yeah. I'm a fiend for the calendar, dude.
I think that's, so at that event I went to last week, they actually went through like a bunch of people's, their actual personal calendar, showing how they block their time off. And I don't know if you should, I don't know, because I feel like it contradicts with the artist, because like sometimes you like to be spontaneous and you feel trapped. At least me, I feel trapped whenever I have every moment of time blocked off. But if you're I've been trying, like I blocked off time for the podcast, which I know I was running a little late. But I blocked that off as soon as we made the deal that you wanted to come hop on. I made sure I blocked off the 4 hours that morning. And then I blocked off time to make sure I got everything set up. and then kind of to refresh myself, think about the conversation we're going to have, instead of just, because I've done these and I wasn't prepared at all, and I'm trying to set up while the person's here, and it's like, but calendar, like going back to the calendar, if I can make sure that every little task that I need to hit is in that calendar for the week, and I can set it up with all the notes in there, then the next time it's just copy and paste. And it does keep me, because I'm aiming towards this one ultimate goal. And if I can just make sure I'm getting all those things in my calendar, it makes it easier to keep walking that path instead of just letting the chaos of the day take you over.
Facts.
So
No,
I've been geeking out a little bit about the calendar, talking.
That's funny.
But I find it creative too, because then you can kind of play around with your time. And which some people might find it really boring, but I don't know. I have a little bit of fun.
No, the calendar is a holy artifact. I have high reverence for the calendar because it's a nightmare to think about everything. So I delegated all to the calendar.
Yep,
So you have like one moment where you put something on the calendar and then you can forget complete. It's the trick to presence, honestly. Because if your calendar's straight, then you've already coordinated the PEMDAS order of operations of your life. Then you're just wherever you are, you are. Because it's not like, oh, dude, wait, what was that thing while you're doing the thing?
Yep.
It's like, I don't know anything. The calendar knows everything. I know nothing. I'll refuse to talk to you without my calendar. If you're trying to have a calendar conversation, it's just not the time. And I'll call you when I have my calendar. But I don't, like, it's a different human. And I'm so grateful for.
Oh, yeah. I
Shout
started
out to
using Google Calendar, and you can go as far as you want to go.
Oh, damn. No, I got my physical calendar.
Oh, paper. And
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I got my I like gridded out a box for 2026, and I'm like
ready to go.
The Google count, yeah.
So, kind of hopping into your personal development as an artist, what got you started wanting to be an artist and then deciding to live that lifestyle?
Yeah, well, I've just, I mean, like most kids draw. Like I've drawn since I was a little kid, and then I've just always loved it. And then I was able to go to art school at MICA in Baltimore, which was awesome in some capacities. It was super awesome for developing my artwork, and it was underwhelming in terms of like learning how to have a business as an artist, I would say. But yeah, just I love drawing. I could draw for 10 hours any day easily. Like I draw pretty detailed pen drawings with watercolor, and most of my life is like 5 inches from paper, just like storytelling, and all my work's sort of connected in these narratives. So when I'm working on a piece, I'm both working on that piece and I'm thinking about how all these like places where I could take the story into the future and these like connection points. And, I feel unbelievably lucky to spend the vast majority of my time like doing creative things that truly I find inspiring to make, and I get to share them with people who enjoy them. So, I mean, if you can make the money work, this is the best job possible. Because it is full like creativity with most of your life, and I will do anything. That's why like I will work 60 hours, because it's like I will do anything to keep this. Like to be a full-time artist, like I know what I have, and what I have is amazing.
I'm sure growing up you had people doubting and telling you can't do this. This isn't a realistic life goal. Hopefully they weren't too close to you, but I'm sure you've heard that. How did you sear those thoughts out of your mind to continue to pursue the dream and then make it a reality? Because that's where so many people they stop, and they might have a great capacity for talent for the arts, but they're listening to too many people tell them they can't do it or this isn't realistic. How do you become successful in that life, I guess?
Yeah, I was definitely pushed to do like engineering, pushed into other things that were like more lucrative, which is like well-intentioned for sure, and generally true, because there's limited, especially when it comes to like, I'm trying to have a family, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like being able to be a full-time artist and provide for a family is difficult for sure. And I think it's totally possible, and I think I'm moving in a direction where that will be accomplished. But yeah, you'll hear, I mean, it's the, the starving artist archetype played over and over, and there's limited examples of people who are like successful with it, but it's just because you don't know them. Like, now that I'm more in it, there's tons of people who are making over $100,000 a year as an artist. There's tons of artists who are like making between $40,000 and $80,000 a year. Like, if you pursue, it's crazy because I see a lot of people who, they maybe work from 12 to 4 3 days out of the week, and they're confused why they're not selling work. And it's like, well, I mean, in some ways, like, you work 12 hours that week. Like, if you work part-time anywhere, like, would you really be that surprised that you're not getting the results that you think? So it's tricky because people want to see like this clear path where they're already making the amount of money that they need to survive before pursuing it full time. And I mean, realistically, it is really damn hard to, stand up on your feet all day, work downtown, and then come home after a 10-hour shift and have a intact creative practice. But if you're doing that and then you're making, $2,400 a month, like, the question you have to ask yourself is maybe saying, I need to make $2,400 a month. I'm already sacrificing a ton of my energy. I'm mildly depressed because I'm not fundamentally captivated by the work that I'm doing. So I need this to make $2,400. And then if you work, 50 hours a week or even 40 hours a week, the amount of time that you were already going to delegate to standing up, like, you don't know what's possible. Like, until you do that and know exactly how much you make if you work 40 hours, I think it's incredibly possible to make $2,400 because we do 4 $250 commissions. There's $1,000, and then you vend once a week and are able to make $400 at the event. That's $1,600. So you made $2,600 a month with 4 commissions. Maybe do pet portraits, house commissions, or like somebody's car, and then just pop up on a Saturday at a good event. You can make $400. Fuck. Lock in. Hell yeah, dude. It's totally possible right now. It's the best time to be an artist.
Oh.
Hell yeah, dude.
And I feel like people just lack that belief, but it's so real. And like you said, you don't really realize it until you're doing it. Similar with the landscaping, we started in 2016, and there was probably 4 to 6 years where it was like every other day, am I going to keep doing this? Like, I'm not learning how to make the money. I'm not learning how to do this, because I'd get lost in some of the jobs that we did, and I got to keep tweaking this. I got to keep tweaking that. And I wouldn't take notes of what I'm doing. So then the next job randomized again. But I like working in chaos. Like, when I have so much chaos going on in my life, the only way I can get it back into order is to take all the chaos in a creative way and kind of pour it, and then I can reset again. So I guess that was just my nature, and I like a lot better now that I'm way more organized. But yeah, I'd get lost in some of the jobs, and then I had to start making systems in my brain to get jobs done more efficient and more profitable so that we could keep building the business. But until you went for 5 years where you didn't know if it was going to make it, and you're barely treading water, you're not going to know how to have those next 5 years if you haven't went through all that struggle now. And I think it's 90% of businesses or pursuits die after 5 years because people give up right before it starts to get easy. Not that I think it's ever easy, but you at least get better at dealing with the stress and everything after that point. But yeah, so I guess my next question was, when was the moment you realized you were an artist? But you're saying pretty much your whole life since you were born, that's what you were wanting to do.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely graduated art school, and nobody had ever said you can be a full-time artist, which is an interesting fact. Because I felt like my artwork was good. I spent more time in the studio in college than my peers. I really believed in the work that I was doing, but not a single professor was like, oh, you're going to graduate and you're going to do art full time. And there wasn't a single person, even at art school, who was out loud saying, oh, when I graduate, when you started art school, I feel like it was a no-brainer. Like nobody asked you, but if somebody had asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm here because I want to be an artist, meaning I want to make art and sell it, and that'll be my livelihood. And then you do 4 years of art school, and at the point of graduation, maybe some people weren't saying it vocally and internally thought it, but every other person had just continuously had a bunch of people be like, oh, what are you going to do with your art career? What are you going to do with your art career? What are you going to do with your art career? And you're just like, and you figure out like a sentence that can get them to shut the fuck up. And then you lose all like belief in yourself. So it wasn't until I came to Asheville and I met my printmaker, Josh, who runs Asheville Fine Art Printing, and he documented some of my pieces. He was like, oh, you're going to be a full-time artist. And I fucking cried. Because I was like, what do you mean? He's like, and I mean, to him, it's obvious. He prints for so many artists and he sees like many people who are full-time artists. But it's just like, damn, dude, like that would have been chill to hear once. You know what I mean? And like, it totally is possible. And it's just that if you only believe that your path to being a full-time artist is using a gallery and giving them 50%, and you're in a group show, and then you go to the opening in the group show, and like the only people who show up to the group show are like the artists in the show, and none of the artists in the show buy each other's art because they're all broke, and you're like, well, I don't see a path here. It's easy to get discouraged.
Oh yeah, easy. And like just hearing that one guy say, oh yeah, you're going to be a full-time artist, just that one sentence that someone can tell you can help change your whole trajectory of life.
And there's so many people whose art really could feed them. Like they do something that's fundamentally awesome, and like nobody told them that, and then they got a job, and then they got mildly exhausted, and then they, you know what I mean? Like there's huge opportunity loss in like incredible artists who just like, you know, were paying rent and exhausting themselves and didn't take the leap.
Yeah. And that's one thing I want, like one of the main messages of my podcast to be, and that's why I like to bring different artists and different business and different minded people. Like one of the things that's always the same is, I'm losing my train of thought, sorry. Getting around everybody and getting their ideas is that it's really just taking that risk and taking that leap and having that belief in yourself, because there's no one else going to believe it for you. And you, like, sometimes when you're especially starting out for them first couple years, like you don't have a clue if it's going to work out or not. And just hearing people say you can do this compared to saying that's impossible, you can't make it, is just such a game changer. Right. Especially in them, I don't know where you were whenever you heard that, but like if it gave you that much energy and a boost of like, this is possible, that's awesome.
Totally.
And that's why I think it's important to tell people if they're doing a good job, hey, you're doing an awesome job. Just like let them know that they are doing something, because you never know if they're on the brink of quitting right before they can hit that pot of gold.
That's so true. And the creative community helps so much there. I think that's why I spend so much time on it, and why I really value the River Arts District, is because it's one thing to be giving yourself like an affirmation to yourself, being like, I think this is possible, but it's really helpful to know personally a bunch of people who are making good money off art, who will tell you where they're vending, where they get their prints made, how they price their work. You know what I mean?
So while you're talking about prints, I've been wanting to ask you this. So how do you, because you're doing everything, you're hand drawing it, how do you get this quality, and like how are you getting the digital print of it?
Yeah. So I drop off my original work at what used to be Cheap Joe's, which is now Asheville Art Supply, to my good friend Josh, and he documents my work and then runs high quality prints for me, and he drops them off in the corner of Asheville Art Supply. It's like a perfect system. Asheville Art Supply, hell yeah, hit him up.
Yeah, I've always wondered how, because I mean I don't draw a whole lot, but when I took pictures of it and I can't ever get it to, I mean I guess you never really get on a copy the real feel, but like I just didn't know how y'all did that to get such good quality on it.
Yeah, so his company is Asheville Fine Art Printing, and then he runs at Asheville Art Supply.
And so this past week I was in Florida. So in my off time, I was away from the kids and the wife. So I was able to get into the studio a little bit. And one cool thing, I was trying to make the best quality song with the least amount of tools. And so, because I didn't have room for my mic in my bag. And so I figured out a way to get my iPhone to be the microphone, and was trying to record. And I'm going to try to make it mix the best that I can to like, because that was just the whole feel of the atmosphere of what we were doing. And so I found it really cool, and I've been playing around with a couple different mics. Like this mic I'll make music with, and then I have like a high quality studio mic at the house, and then I have a different one, and each one has a little bit of a different sound. And I'm trying to learn the instrument so that whenever I get that feeling, I can express it just a little bit deeper. And so how does that translate into the visual arts? Like I'm sure you paint with different brushes and different pencils, and like how does, I don't know, it makes me feel so cool to know that you can play with different tools. Like how does that
Totally
translate?
Yeah, I have a more free sketchbook practice, and I think typically because I have like my microphone equivalent that I'm comfortable with in mediums. Like I'll use the same watercolor, colored pencil, and marker for most of the work I do. But having offshoots where you are experimenting like with things that you're less comfortable with will always fruitfully circle back to your main project. So even if like when it really comes down to it, you're going to use the equipment that you love, you'll learn some weird hiccup in the exploring other things that'll cycle back into the main work.
Sorry, there might be people. Who's that? Anna? Oh, good. We're good. If someone does come and distract, I do apologize.
You're all good.
But we were talking about the tools.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I've seen people draw paintings with like matches and like ketchup, and I think it's really cool to like at least put in practice every once in a while. Like I have all this cool equipment and I know how it's gonna sound, but what if, like when I had the phone, I was like, what is this gonna sound like? And you might not ever use it, but I think it's such a cool thing to start practicing, is just different ways, and like just recreating your artistic mind and not getting stuck in the same practice over and over. Especially writing a song. Like I learned probably like 4 or 5 years ago, not like before that I learned this, I would make all the songs the same, and you'd get stuck in like a vortex of just the same stuff over and over and over, and then you almost lose some love for it. But I heard someone say that no song's ever created the same twice. And so then I like kind of threw everything I knew about music at the time and just started letting it feel. And now I feel like my music's more alive. It's not such a college rule notebook, you know. And I think it's important to get outside of your comfort zone, especially being an artist. So what kind of gets you into that creative mood? I know it's kind of like routine and a discipline now, but like when you're creating some of your best work or some of your favorite work that you've put out, what's different about those moments compared to just staying in the discipline?
You wish it was like that. There is no like final golden halo moment. Like because a piece, like my favorite piece that I've ever made is this piece, Eyes of Appalachia, and it took me 250 hours. And over the course of 250 hours, you're gonna like, there's moments of like intense inspiration and like creative generation where I'll be working on a piece. The way I work is from the bottom up, and I'll finish the work at the bottom and then just like slowly be working my way up. And then coloring the bottom, maybe I'll have like a moment where I have an insight about something I want to add further up the piece. So it'll come in like moments where I'll just like pencil in an idea for what comes next. But also there's times where I'm like wildly, you know, I didn't wake up that morning being like, yeah, let's go, baby. But it's just like, that's the beauty of like taking yourself seriously and being like, oh, my art is a career. And if it's a career, like if I'm going to spend 40 hours doing something I hate, I owe it to like, there's no job that you enjoy every day. And I think that's way more valuable than anything. And then realistically, I do like making art. Yeah. So once I'm like making art, I'm like, nice.
True. I think it's a little similar with music, because the way I'm kind of creating newer stuff now is I like to get a good vibe track kind of like throw out the idea, and sometimes it's the first take, sometimes it's the 20th take, but I'm just searching for what am I trying to say here. And then sometimes 90% of it I can use, and then sometimes only 5% of it I can use. But just faithful to go, because I always use it as like that's my canvas, and then each layer of the lyrics is each brush stroke. And sometimes you might find a piece here, and then you erase all this, and then keep going. I don't know. I love getting lost in that process, and I just think it's pretty much magic whenever it all comes together. I do wish I had more time to make music, but we're working on working that into our calendar.
Hell yeah.
So staying on that topic, do you think creativity is more of a discipline or an inspiration? I know we briefly touched on that, but how much do you think it is one or the other?
Yeah, I mean, people are like, are you born an artist? That's like a conversation that comes up. I think I get a lot of joy out of making things. And I think if that's the case, then you can be great at it. Like, maybe there are people who like when they make stuff, they don't like it gives me that dopamine release. You know what I mean? Like and there's like just something about the fact that if you spend like 20 minutes scrolling, like in the final account of your life, there's nothing of that. And if I spend 20 minutes sketching, and even if the drawing's bad, that time is marked in a meaningful way where it exists on people come into my studio and I've got a ton of art on the wall and they're like, wow, you've been busy. And it's like satisfying because it's like I easily could have wasted that total amount of hours, but it's like you're gonna have albums and EPs and you'll be hopefully 65 at some point, and you'll be like putting your kids on some game, you know what I mean? It'd be like, oh, it's like even if, you know what I mean? Like it's forever documenting your life in this awesome way. And even like going back like 10 years and just seeing this type of stuff I was drawing, like creativity also has like superpowers in the fact that once you just do this thing more, like your creative practice will know things about you long before you do.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're like in a freestyle mode and just things are coming up, you'll say something just because it's like, it's not even your mind. It's like more like your body. Like, and if I'm drawing, it's coming out of like my hand in places that aren't like my cognitive thinking mind.
Yeah.
So I'll have things emerge that are like, I'll just be like, oh, that's interesting. And then a year down the line, I'll be like looking back on it. And it's like everything I'm like consciously hyper interested in then was like emerging long before I would have thought much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that a lot in my music. Like I'll make a song and I don't really understand. I really like it, but I don't really know what it's saying to me. And someone else listening to it might not even get it, like the message that I'm getting from it. But then 3-6 months later, the thing that I was talking about has happened, and I'm looking back at it, and it's like, I don't know. That's why I like to stay freestyling compared to, and I'll write to the freestyle and try to make a little better sense because sometimes you lose your wording or whatever. But that's one of my favorite parts of the artistic practice is just the subconscious revealing almost a future to you.
Facts.
No, it's crazy.
And
that's crazy that it happens. I didn't think about it happening like visuals. But
hell yeah. I mean, the freestyle and the sketchbook ideally are the same, where you're like, there's a lot of garbage being collected quickly, and then you just freeze it when you've like, oh shit, that's something, and then you can refine it in like your case of a song, in my case like a longer drawing. Yeah. But like you'll get a moment, and as long as you just like accept a good amount of garbage and enjoy creating garbage.
Now do you get, whenever, I know like when I'm tweaking a song and I'm going to that final master and you've been on the same project for 2 weeks and all the joy of the project is gone, how do you push through that resistance to complete it to the point where you're going to sell it or put it out to the public to see?
Yeah, that's less of an issue for me in part due to how I work, because I'll finish it at the bottom, and then as I move up the page, I'm like finishing it. And I think some artists particularly like if you're working more abstract or like when is it done. And the fact that like my art practice, when I get to the top, it's pretty much done. Maybe I'll refine a few things, but like having a clear end point. Like I'm sure with music, like Meryl Jane, my girlfriend, she's recording music, and like this dude she's working with can like add cello tracks over the top and like pretty much play any instrument on his computer perfectly. He's kind of a genius. And you know, if you have the opportunity to be listening to it and then being like, man, maybe some cello, like that's an endless, maybe some flute.
And I think that's important to like limit your options sometimes,
Right.
especially on the mixing or the mastering, because there's so many little buttons you can tweak. And
right.
I don't know, after about 2 sessions of that, I need to just stop, because it's as good as it's going to get. I might can make it a little better, but I got to be okay with the art when it's telling me it's done.
Right.
Does it do the same? Like, does it tell you when the painting's done, or with that process?
Yeah, it does.
Do you have the picture in your head before you draw something, or do you just kind of let it?
Yeah, I'll have like a corner of it. I'll know like where we're starting, and the more I've done it and the more that like it's just faith. Like I'll know kind of like a bottom part of it, of like the idea spot, and then I'll start coloring that, and then somewhere randomly in the process of that, I'll just be like, oh, I could see how this could become a next part of it, and I'll pencil something in. But I mean, you look at my work, it's hyper detailed. People are like, how did you think of that? And it's like, you don't actually think of that. You just like began, well, there's infinity art processes, but for me, it's like an emergent process. So I'll only know a corner of it. And then, you know, over the course of 40 hours, things will emerge.
Do you think that what gives you the dopamine rush at the end is that you only had the corner of it, you had no idea where this thing was going to go, and then seeing it done, it's just like,
Right. No, it's almost dopamine hacking the way I do it, because I think if I were to pen everything in, I wouldn't have the like, oh man, like, oh, what is that? Yeah. Like I leave, like I think of it as like keeping it free as long as possible. Because once I use like a hard black line and then I'm coloring it, everything's sort of set in a meaningful way. But like if there's spots that are pure, like I too want to know how it ends, and I sincerely do not. And that like edge will be like, yeah, dude, everything, dude. I've been tripping out on the fact that everything's just like, oh my gosh, the dopamine response is like our whole, like, oh, I'm gonna drink a Celsius, get a little bit of buzz. Like, oh, I'm gonna scroll Instagram, little bit of buzz. Like, oh, I'm gonna eat a little bit of sugar, little bit of buzz. Or like, oh my Lord, just the fact that I don't know why I'm going down this train, but it's too deep now. Before I used to be like, oh, I'm a little bit hungry, or like, oh, I kind of want to drink right now. Like, I used to think of them all as like radically different ideas, but then I like in the last week have been like, dude, like every path I go, you just want like a little dopamine. Like you're just a fiend who just needs a little scratch. So now like when I scroll, like I like mindlessly open up Instagram when I'm like taking a shit, and I'll just like pretend I'm smoking a cigarette. Like, oh, you need a little hit, buddy? You need a little hit? You need a little buzz? You weren't buzzing enough? It's low-key a nightmare. That's why I kind of like just make art, because it's like a really healthy way to just stim.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
I know, just trying to stop hopping on social media as much, which I feel like as an art, when you're putting stuff out, you have to be on social media, and you have to see, I don't know, maybe sometimes I get too caught up on like seeing how something's doing, or like when do people disengage with the video. So I've almost like, I'm trying to get off of social media as much as possible and only post. But sometimes I delete it, and then you kind of lose any connection you had building. So I don't know how to like regulate that so much yet, but
yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, just there's a difference between producing content, which is valuable, and then being a user.
Yeah.
And like the baseline addiction right now is unfathomable and will age terribly.
Oh yeah.
Like the amount of like glitchy, but because like that's like the root, like especially if you're like younger, like you're growing up going like bzz, 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 like wake up, let me just get a hit. Like that sort of like short-term dopamine release is gonna spiral into so many other addictions of like pornography and food and relationship and like drugs and alcohol for sure. because your baseline is like, I need a little bit of friggin' stim. So I monitor it like you and really try and especially lately, the internet we need a reset. It's like too much.
Yeah,
it's way too much.
Like I'll just find, like, I don't know. And they have it so triggered so that if you just see this here, here, and here, like you're subconsciously just clicking, and then you've been on scrolling for 5-10 minutes. You're like, how did I even get
and
here?
it's pretty compelling. It's like,
And
I
the
like
videos
watching
they
that dude
select
fall
for
off
you.
his skateboard. I think it's funny. It's like just enough to like continue, I guess. Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's definitely a tricky one because I do fundamentally think it's a super useful tool.
Oh yeah.
But it's yeah, I literally have a social media company, mind you. So I just see the need, like from a business perspective, like posting on social media is a really good idea.
What's the name of that social media company?
Yeah, Looking Glass Media, and we will show up on site. We film, edit, and post across multiple platforms. We work with Asheville Sandwich Company, Kale Rogers. We work with Deep Time and Uncommon Markets. We got tons of clients, all local, who we work with. If you're ever interested in just talking about it more, you can just slide into my DMs, and I'm happy to just sit down and grab lunch.
I don't know if I asked, what's your Instagram? How do people find you?
Oh yeah, it's beals.art. So BEALS.art.
Cool. And we'll put I'll put a little flyer there.
Sweet.
Some of these questions are a little repetitive, so I'm trying to.
I think this light went out, by the way.
Oh.
That might just be the way it is.
No, they're dying. I didn't get them charged very low.
No, you're chilling.
But so when you're getting ready to sell a piece of art, how do you handle the price points? How does that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been gradually increasing my original price, and I know that I have like an accessible price point for my prints. So, you know, I sell my 8x10s for $25, my 11x14 inches for $40, and my 16x20 inches for $60. And I mean, realistically, the margins on those are awesome. Like I Googled the other day, I was like, what is the average margin of like anything like at CVS? And they were like, oh, it's like 10%. And then I was like, what is the margin on a print? And don't tell anybody, but you go from $7 and like 50 cents to $40. So it's like the flip's like 80%. So it's like, and I mean, it makes sense. You're selling paper.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a tremendous amount of work involved in making the thing. But the way I think about it is like the process of making that, you know, I'm also going to sell the original. So this is just like a side quest. But like to have an 80% margin, like I went to Bonnaroo, the music festival, and it was like $1,600 to vend there. But it's like you could definitely make $20,000 in a weekend, dude. And like there's like Electric Forest, there's big time outdoor festivals where there's just 100,000 people there. And if you're like have a nice booth display and are like, you know, even like you talk to people or got somebody there who can talk to people in addition to you, so you can take breaks, like there's incredible potential there. And I mean, if you're selling like a t-shirt for like $30, the blank cost you like, you know, I don't know, maybe $15. And then you had to like actually screen print on the actual thing. Like it's like a print. I just pick up my prints and then plastic and back them. Like it's a simple process. And I think for a lot of artists, it can be a really lucrative place to allow more people to have your art and to have a price point that doesn't depend on somebody with multiple hundreds. Because I mean, most people don't have a couple spare $100, but they might have $40 if they really connect with your shit, or $100.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Has there ever been a piece of art that you did, like, because you said you sell your originals, has there ever been a piece of that you didn't want to let go but you did? How is that, like, losing that personal connection to that actual original piece?
Yeah, Yeah, no, I mean, anytime I sell an original, it really does mean a lot to me because it's like something like it's like you made a bunch of children, you know, and your children are getting adopted, and it's a beautiful day, and you know they're off to college. You're like, oh, it happened so fast. But yeah, I mean, I love being with them, and I just know I'm gonna continue to make more work. But there's certainly moments where I'm like, damn. And also like I'm pretty like I have good belief in myself that like ultimately throughout my career like the prices of my work will increase. So like whenever people buy a piece, I'm like hell yeah. And also like that'll age well.
Oh yeah.
It's like I mean nobody buys art I mean obviously some people buy art as like a investment, but like I have a fundamental belief in the value of it going up. I'm like, yeah, buy the original now. It's a good time to buy it.
Oh yeah, true.
Sell it later. Put the kids through college. No, we'll see about that, but
that'd be real cool if you got on eBay one day and then seen your pieces going for 10 times as much.
Yeah. No, I've had artists who will buy back their work. It's pretty funny. One of my professors, his painting career really blew up, so he like went back to some of his like previous collectors and paid them significantly more than what they paid for it. And you know they had good relation, they had multiple pieces, they sold him a few pieces, and then he like sold them again at an even because he was just further along in his career. But it's like this hilarious dimension, you know. In Europe, if you resell a piece, there's a built-in percentage that goes back to the artist, but it's not like that in the US, which is the more you know.
Oh yeah. How do they monitor that there? Is there
Well,
I guess
that's
there's
a great
websites
question.
you're buying it from, but
Well, mostly it's like you're talking about the high-end art market, so most of that's going through public auction.
yeah.
So it's like built in. I'm sure it doesn't always happen for under-the-table stuff at lower price points, but like for serious work that's done at an auction house, which is if you're selling stuff for more than $50,000 likely, then yeah.
How important as an artist and full-time artist is it for you to learn the management of your own money, kind of talking about that and understanding what's fair price points, where you want to see yourself, and if you do blow up one day and your art's worth millions, to make sure you're getting paid yourself. I feel like I've seen so many artists kind of put that secondary and let the art speak, but I feel like you do have to have somewhat of a almost business mindset to make sure you're not screwing yourself if you do get those lucky breaks.
Yeah, I do notice that I talk about money a good bit, but it's almost like I'm not even talking about money. Like the reason why I'm talking about, like when I say the word money even, I'm mostly talking about like, oh, I want my time to be mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to spend my life doing things that I enjoy, and I want to be able to take care of people around me and myself in a way that is sustainable. So like I talk about money considerably just because by tendency, you're not in the AI tech development field. Like if you're in the AI tech development field, whatever you do is going to come along with a large amount of money.
Oh, true.
Like it's just built into the system. But because art by tendency, by culture, in reality, won't default on you making a good amount of money, I tend to talk about it more because like what I fundamentally think I'm talking about when I'm talking about it is just the ability to have control over your life and spend your time doing things that you find meaningful. And, you know, that's a learning curve. I'm also lucky in the sense that like I was able to start a moving company and a painting company. And I've had a lot of experiences where I'm selling some shit that I'm more disconnected from. Cause like when I show up, like I would play or pick up rec league soccer in Baltimore, and then people would leave, you know, because all the games would end, and I would just have my flyer for my painting company and my moving company. I've like just finished soccer, and people are walking by. I'm like, moving, painting? You need any moving work, painting work, moving work, painting work? And like they're saying no, and I'm acutely aware due to repetition that they're actually not saying no to me as like a human and a spiritual creative. Like it's not that deep. Like I'm just the guy who's offering something and they're not interested for a million reasons, and none of them, it's not personal. Like really it isn't. Like I also collected signatures for a ballot initiative down in Florida for reproductive rights. So I went up to every single Floridian and was like, would you like to sign for, like pro-choice reproductive rights? And they would be like, fuck you, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, cause it's a very, like a lot of people have a lot of opinions on the topic. And, I was just like, this has nothing to do with me. Like, and the phrase they gave me is, some will, some won't. So what next? And that was incredibly valuable. And then when I do my art, somebody comes in, I welcome them in. It's not their cup of tea, dude. I ain't taking that like personally, dude. It's just a numbers game. Like, if you put yourself in positions, most people even maybe won't connect with your work in a meaningful way. But you just keep like inviting people into that opportunity, and then the people who are meant to connect with it will connect with it. But that idea of like it helps, because the trouble is that art is actually deeply personal, and making music is deeply personal. So if people are like, man, I did not like this, it's a way more sounds like I don't like you, and I don't like the spirit that you bring to this thing. And it's like highly emotional. So it's very useful to like do it in other sectors that had less of my soul in it, to just know deeply in my bones that people connect and don't connect for a million reasons that have very little to do with you. So that way, when you are sharing more vulnerable parts of yourself, like, some people, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it could be because like something bad happened in their family and they're just not in the headspace for it. And you know what I mean? It's tastes, and just being like, just easier to just work with that reality.
I had a chemistry teacher in high school. I think it was my junior year, somewhere around there. And he said, you can't ever let someone else control your emotions, because even if they cuss you out on the road or in person or whatever happens in that scenario, you don't know. Obviously, there's a million things that made them snap on you for cutting them off or something, And I think that's important to keep in mind, that it's and one thing I'm trying to do in business, like if you lose customers or something, it's not personally me. It's just we didn't have the best relationship, or they're trying to save money, or they just don't like what you're putting out. And that doesn't mean that you're going to lose every customer. That's just, hey, let's regroup, let's learn from what happened in the situation, but it's not personally attacking me. And that's something I've been working on a little bit lately, actually, but really important to just understand there's a million different things going on in the background. So where do you see yourself in the next 10 years with your artwork?
Yeah, I feel like I'll probably stay here. I think Asheville is one of the strongest art scenes in the country right now. I think I'm going to just continue to build relationships and continue to make work that I find meaning in. I'll probably continue to pursue more of the music festival venue, because I found it to like be a good audience for the type of work that I make. And probably bounce around doing Bonnaroo, Electric Forest, some of the bigger ones, maybe go down to Halloween and vend there, and just have like ideally 6 to 8 markets where I can regularly make more than $10,000 at. And so like, there's artists who will make $100,000 in the summer. They'll go to Bonnaroo, Electric Forest, and a handful of others, and they'll get their goddamn money up and have a lot of the year to like chill out. And like, I've seen it. I've done it. I'm like, oh wow, that's real life. That's a chill way to live. I mean, it's a lot of work to set up Bonnaroo. Like, I'm making it sound easier than it is, but yeah, just continue to have like, because setting up, doing all that work to make like $500 is just kind of like, at this point, just like, I'd rather just be in my studio continuing to make work. So yeah, just prioritizing markets. Like, if I set up, I want to feel like I can make $1,000 that day. And when I started off, when I made $300 at a market, that was more than I could typically make in a day. So I was like, let's go, $300 day. But then you just level up your display, you level up which markets you're taking on. You go to markets that have more people. And so in terms of my career, I mean, mostly I'm working on this mushroom series right now that I'm really interested in. And it's like a series of 5. I've been going out into the mountains with my buddy Luke doing the nature journaling, and it's this cool storytelling that's like weaving in mythology with all these cool Appalachian mushrooms I've been learning about, and like getting into their mycelium underworld and like emergent mythology. And they're very animated the way I'm drawing them. So I'm going to try and I'm getting like high quality documentation done through Josh. And then I'm going to start messing around with trying to like loosely animate them using some of the AI tools, because my work is so narrative, and like part of the experience is like, if you're with it, like I'll tell like about some of the stories behind my work, like it's a connective part of that experience. But I do see like, man, like it would be really cool if like you bought a print, the backside of it has a QR code, you scan the QR code, and there's this like sort of immersive storytelling component that sort of comes out of that.
Yeah.
So that's something that interests me for sure.
Ooh, I like that idea. So like there would be a QR code on the back, and you could play it while you're looking at the piece, and there's a narration of it.
So yeah, and I mean either like I mean I'm pretty novel. Like I haven't explored them much. I've done enough to see like, oh wow, this is improving tremendously, and I obviously have, you know, a lot of resistance to AI art in a lot of capacities as it comes to like just pure image generation, because, you know, I mean, they train those models on a bunch of artists' information, mine included, that I was never paid for or consented to, and will probably never see a lick of that. And like, again, my work, it's like physical, but like I went to school with a lot of digital illustrators who, I mean, damn, dude, like every job they have, like even logo development is like a click. You're like, oh, I need a flyer design, click. Like those are jobs that are for sure dissolving quickly, and I'm aware of. But in terms of like taking an image that I made in the flesh, I have 150 hours in on it, and then I'm starting to play around with like animation. I'm curious by it. I think it's getting really good really quickly, and I'm curious to see from a storytelling perspective what's possible, because animation, so it's either highly expensive with a long team that takes multiple years, or well, it's just a lot of things. And like the ability to see if I can begin to get a loose idea of those tools sounds interesting.
Yeah, I know just in our industry, we sell designs of landscapes, and they haven't quite gotten a 2D model that you can modify like on a CAD, which I'm sure is coming. And if I had more time, that would be a business venture I would go after, is trying to get a CAD AI that you could speak to, and it could take 2 weeks of work of going back and forth to the site and making little changes to where you can speak it, and then boom, it's drawing all your lines.
I'm sure it's being developed.
I'm sure
as
it
you
makes
speak,
me,
rather.
and I hope I can make that happen, because I would subscribe to that product. But like we're trying to think, okay, well, if this kind of job is probably going to be obsolete, how do we keep our design? Because I still feel like you're going to need that human touch, because I mean, they're going to put plants. I'm sure you're still going to have to verify like the plants for the sunlight and the shade. So hopefully, but it's not going to be a whole lot of time spent on those plans in the future. So how can we develop your position as a designer, and how can we keep it profitable to keep that on if AI is coming to do it for pretty much nothing?
Yeah.
And then how do we charge for designs then? Because then obviously the customer is going to know that you're using software, and 5-10 years from now that you're not really having to put a lot of effort into. So how do you charge for your experience to make sure it's still built correctly? So those are things we're wrestling with, and we're playing around with, like, because the 3D imagery is unreal. Like we can go out there, snap a picture, throw it into Chat GPT. Hey, we want these kind of plants here, extend this bed. And it's not perfect yet, but for the beginning stages, it's like, I mean, it took like literally no work to get this to generate what we're trying to sell to you.
Yeah, and it's like 3 years ago, there was no technology where you could write something and an image would be generated.
Yeah.
Like for the history of humankind, that always required like an artist to be involved or a designer to be involved. So whatever we're seeing, which I agree with you, is damn compelling.
Oh.
Like from an image standpoint, impressive. Literally impressive. And like we're witnessing like an infant. We're witnessing like the very early technology. I think we're approaching interesting times, and honestly, I think being an artist will age well, because I think we'll enter like a pretty I have a resting 9.5 out of 10 concern level for AI, and just the short term, I think, will be dramatically wild.
Oh yeah.
And I think through all of that, creatives will have more, like, it's a cool job. Like, I think as we enter the techno doom, the fact that I work with my hands will be more valued, almost out of like exhaustion from the like dopamine infinity content spiral we found ourselves in, and like meaningful connection between artists will continue to be valuable. And so just finding ways to just keep meaningful things meaningful through the transformation.
I've been trying to stay optimistic about AI, but like you, the short term, I think it's gonna make some crazy changes. But trying to stay optimistic. I feel like there's some things that you just have to have the human touch for, because even if AI is generating all this, you're still gonna have to have the human to continue to. I don't know. Maybe it can feed itself. I don't know how that's gonna go, but optimistic. We're gonna stick with that right now. Until it's too late. But I do gotta try to wrap it up now, unfortunately, and head to a couple meetings. But before we go, can you tell people one more time where they can find you and where they can buy your art?
Totally. Yeah, well, if you're anywhere around here, just swing by my art studio at Pink Dog Creative. I'm in there drawing almost every day. It's on Depot Street. There's like an wood fire pizza spot right next to the door, so you can just come in. Yeah, I invite you to come to Sketchbook Club every first and third Monday of the month. If you connect on Instagram, my Instagram is beals.art, beals.art. And we're always going nature journaling or camping. So if you're a creative and just want to meet other people, just come connect, come to Sketchbook Club, see what's going on, and just tap deeper into the creative community.
Cool. Well, I do appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, sir. Appreciate this.
And we're out.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The iMAXX Podcast.